Alright guys, so today we're going to do our second Blue Apron recipe review. Here we got a meat and potatoes dish, meat, potatoes, broccoli, steak specifically, with a nice, I think nice, we'll see nice, Parmesan crust. First thing I'm going to do is just unpack these ingredients. I've got some steak here. I'm going to hold this for the last one. I'm going to unwrap it, dry it off with some paper towels. Our produce are the potatoes, the broccoli, a lemon. I've got a nice little pack here to get our Parmesan crust put together. Some cheese. We're going to make the mashed potatoes with labna cheese. I don't know if I've ever used that before. We'll see how it goes. So, I'm going to cut up some potatoes, going to cut up some broccoli, zest and cut up some lemon, get our prep work done, then we'll come back and start cooking. Okay, so what I've done with the potatoes so far, just cut them in half again, and then maybe 5, maybe 6 cuts or so. We get these nice dice, throw them into a bowl. We've got our broccoli. I actually don't mind the stems. I kind of like the stems of broccoli, so I'm going to take that, just cut off the bottom, very, very bottom layer is typically not great, and then work up. You get another bit of stems there. You cut this into kind of nice, kind of think just bite-sized pieces, all the way up to the florets. And we're going to get our florets nicely chopped. You still want some large pieces. That will, large enough pieces that will prevent them from getting overcooked. You know, the smaller the broccoli piece, the more likely or faster it'll cook. And I do not love overcooked broccoli. Like, we're looking pretty good here. Let's just cut that. Take this stem out. Okay, we've got our broccoli. We'll throw this into another bowl. And then the last bit of prep we're going to do, I think it's the last bit of prep we're going to do, is zest our lemon. This is a, I think it's a pink lemon. I like to take a lemon, give it a little bit of a roll first, and that actually breaks up some of the pulp in the middle, and makes it a little bit easier to juice. And then we're going to zest the lemon. I've got a little zester here. The recipe says either use a zester or use a peeler to really take a thin layer of the skin off, and then you can chop it up. But these zesters are really great, really easy to use, and really simple to get a lot of that zest. Get it all there. We've got our bowl for our zest. We've got a bowl for our lemon, which we're going to quarter. I'll come back and take out the seeds. Yeah, it is a pink lemon. You can see the color on that, hopefully. We'll drop that in our bowl. Then I'm just going to unwrap the steak. While I've been prepping, I've got the oven preheating to 450. I've got a pot of water on the stove. Okay, so we've got our water boiling here for our potatoes. This is a nice, vigorous boil. I'm going to turn it down. I like boiling potatoes. I actually usually start them in cold water, honestly. But the recipe says start them in boiling water, so we're going to start them in boiling water. We're also just going to have it just kind of barely simmer. And it's probably going to take about 15-20 minutes is what the recipe says for the potatoes to become fork tender. Okay, so I've unwrapped our steaks. These are nice little top sirloin steaks. I'm going to set them aside. Our potatoes are cooking. We're going to deal with the steaks in a minute. Here's our chopped up broccoli, which we're going to roast off shortly after our potatoes finish cooking. I'm going to hit them with some olive oil. That was a few tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to hit them with a little bit of salt, a couple pinches, and some pepper. And then I'm just going to toss these all together to get them nicely coated. And then we're going to go on a sheet pan with them. That olive oil will help crisp up the broccoli a little bit, help it brown. I'm going to actually add a touch more olive oil. If you don't like getting in there with your hands, go ahead and use a pair of tongs or a spoon or something like that. Okay, so while our broccoli is now roasting, it says let's make our Parmesan crust for our steaks. In goes breadcrumbs to a bowl. In goes Parmesan cheese. In goes, I open these, you gotta be careful, at least I gotta be careful. Our smoky spice blend. That smells pretty good. It smells like cumin chili powder in there. Our lemon zest goes in. Juice from 2 of our lemon wedges. And if you get any more seeds in there, you want to keep an eye out for them and pull those guys out. Mine look okay. Olive oil, it says to make a paste. So that's obviously a little bit of a judgment call. So you stir in a little bit, or pour a little bit of olive oil in, and then add this. It says season with a little bit of salt and a little bit of fresh ground black pepper if you've got it. I think we're going to go a touch more olive oil. I don't think you want it, you don't want it soupy, but you need it wet enough to kind of stick to the steak. Once we get it, once we get the steaks browned. This looks pretty good. Just going to make sure, particularly that lemon zest is going to have a tendency to clump together. So you want to make sure it's all evenly distributed. Okay, and there we go. Kind of like very wet sand, I would say. Okay, so I just tested our potatoes, and they are just about done. They're tender. I'm just going to let them go for another minute or so. So once we drain our potatoes, we're starting our broccoli. This is now a little bit of olive oil on it, a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm just going to spread it out, kind of one layer on the sheet pan. I'm using parchment paper. The recipe says aluminum foil. Use whatever you want. And into a preheated 450-degree oven. Okay, our potatoes are fork tender. Let me show you what that means. Shockingly, it means they are fork tender. Fork goes in nice and easily. I've got a little strainer here. I'm going to set it in a sink and drain, and you should get a nice wave of steam on the camera. Just let them drain out for a second. Get that water out. And this is the same bowl I had them in previously. And we're going to add them to our bowl. And then what we're going to do, we're going to make our essentially masher. I'd call these smashed potatoes by adding in this cheese. Alright, I gotta grab some, oh, there we go. I'm going to add in this cheese, which tastes a lot like, kind of like creme fraiche, which should be quite nice in potatoes, kind of like creme fraiche and sour cream. Get all that in there. Little drizzle of olive oil in there as well. You can always add some more olive oil. Salt. Potatoes need a good amount of salt usually, but you can always add a little bit more. Skins are on these potatoes. If you find that objectionable, go ahead, peel the potatoes before you cut them. And then this is just a fork mash, obviously. Wooden spoon would be good for this. If you want to get them kind of nice and smooth and creamy, go ahead and use a mashed potato masher, or you can also use a ricer. And we're just going to get these mixed up. That's looking pretty good. Then we're going to give it a little bit of taste for that is labna. It's a nice again, it's kind of like, imagine like sour cream on a baked potato. It's kind of what it tastes like. All right, I think these are good to go. Our broccoli is going. I think it's time to start cooking our steaks. Okay, so it's time to brown off our steaks. I got a nice pan here. Kind of use the heaviest gauge pan that you have that retains the heat better. A little bit of canola oil in there. If you only have olive oil, that's fine. I often use olive oil. And you want to get the pan really super hot. What I've done to steaks, a little bit of salt, well, more than a little bit. I think people under-season steaks, so a good amount of salt and pepper on both sides of the steak. a really good hot pan. You want to hear a nice loud sizzle when we drop this in. And we're just looking to brown both sides. Not cook it all the way through, because we're still going to add this to the oven. Again, good sizzle there, good sizzle here. Once we lay it in, don't touch it, just let it go for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. Alright, so my steaks have gone for about 2 minutes or so. In that really hot pan, that's the only way you get that nice caramelized outside. We're going to flip these around, let them go for another 2 minutes or so. Again, hard sear on both sides, and I'm going to take the broccoli out of the oven. So, I just killed the heat on our steaks. We got, again, nice sear on both sides. They're still raw in the middle, but we're going to add them to the oven, get the crust on. Okay, so I've transferred our steaks over to the tray now, and they're not fully cooked through. They're still kind of rare in the middle, but we're going to cook them in the oven with this beautiful crust on there, and for me, they're going to go to kind of nice medium rare. So, our crust here, this is the cheese and spices and breadcrumbs and all that. We're just going to lay it on each steak in a fairly generous layer. I think I've got probably an 1.5 inches or so on here. If a little bit falls off, don't worry about it. It's going to fall off. It won't do anything bad. In fact, if a little bit of this crust actually mixes in with that broccoli, I think that would actually taste pretty damn good. In terms of laying it on, just kind of gently pat it down enough so that it holds on to the steak, but you're not standing on it, you're not really pressing it or anything like that. Once we get them covered, we're going to slip back into a 450 degree oven for about 7 or 8 minutes. Alright, so I've got my potatoes on the back of the stove, covered, staying warm. We're going to grab our steaks and our broccoli out of the oven. Those feel pretty good to me. What I'm going to do is take these steaks off the roasting pan. You got to be careful not to twist them and lose that delicious crust on top. I'm just going to let them rest for a few minutes. The broccoli here, you can always test it. I think it's plenty done for me. And what I love, that olive oil. You see those nice little charred bits? To me, that's the best part of the broccoli. What we're going to do is take, I think, one of our remaining pink lemons. We'll just pull the broccoli together and give it a little drizzle of the lemon. Not too much for me. And then, honestly, like I said, this extra Parmesan crust, if you mix that in with the broccoli, I think that would be a pretty tasty combo as well. But let's go ahead, we'll plate up our broccoli, we'll plate up our potatoes, and by then our steaks will be ready to go. Alright, let's go ahead, plate up our first steak here. We've got our mashed potatoes, or again, I'd call them smashed potatoes. We've got a big pile of our roasted broccoli. And then let's grab one of our steaks here. And that is looking like a hell of a meal. That's the Blue Apron, what is it called? Parmesan Crusted steak with the mashed potatoes. Let's go ahead and cut into this guy. See how we're doing. In terms of, yep, so I like that. That's perfectly medium rare to rare. For me, we'll give it a little taste as well with some of that crust. I think that's nice. Actually, a crust with the lemon provides a nice bit of acid. And then our roasted broccoli. Thumbs up on this one. Give it a try. Let me know how it goes. Leave a comment, and I'll see you next time on No Recipe Required. Alright, Blue Apron Parmesan Crusted Steaks. I'm giving 2 thumbs up. I really like the crust with the steak, that lemony cut through the red meat. Broccoli was good. It was all, really good. Ingredients were fresh. I'm going to throw a link into the description if you want to check out Blue Apron. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me a comment, let me know how it goes.